Hello. I cooked all my meals from monsters in the dungeon, but stuff still happened. So what's up? I'm back. Wow. It was a lot. A lot happened while I was gone. Too much. But let's start off with a heist. In Philadelphia, there's been a bunch of robberies of armored cars. You know those like armored vans, right? Like they service banks, they're boxy, they've got money inside. That's the entire business structure. Who's in? Anyway, one of these companies, Brinks, has been burgled a bunch of times around the Philadelphia area, like in suburbs and such. Most recently, thieves held up a driver at gunpoint and stole about $700,000 from the armored car. Now, I will note that the second the driver is held up by gunpoint, the armor doesn't do much. 700 grand is a good haul, but in June, they stole 2 million from a different truck, which begs the question, why aren't these trucks coming to my house? Anyway, the local investigators and attorney say that they have found suspects and they've arrested 3 people, one of whom they say is a former employee of Brinks, the armored car company. To which that guy's lawyer says that he's not involved at all. What are you talking about? Get out of here. Anyway, long story short, security theater is not practical. I'm a consultant. Hire me. Moving on. Stateside. Sorry, that was supposed to be with a frown. Stateside. Okay, I'm just gonna front load all of the Trump bullshit into one segment. Like I don't want this to be the entirety of the stateside news. So let's jump in. We'll start off with the DC takeover. So Washington DC is currently occupied by Trump-aligned forces. That may sound editorialized, but I don't know what else to call a group of military people being dispersed into a city at the express direction of a single guy for no reason. Donald Trump has deployed hundreds of members of the National Guard to Washington, D.C., alongside a whole bunch of federal agents to assist in law enforcement. He has declared a crime emergency in the city and says that D.C. is this lawless hellhole where you just get shot for breathing. It's absurd. It was absurd enough that I posted a video, even though it's supposed to be on break last week, and I'll just summarize what I said there. There's nothing happening in DC that merits any of this. This is a very sad show of force from a sad old man who has to make good on campaign promises to hurt people. Donald Trump on the campaign trail referred to himself as, and I quote, "your retribution." Right-wing news outlets have been talking about how liberals have been ruining the lives of every American in every city, and they're coming after your jobs and kids and way of life. Here comes Donald Trump. Don't you want to punish the libs? And because he can technically sort of legally do this, that's why they're doing it. It's the classic like, oh, you're opposed to us deploying people to help with the crime? Why are you pro-crime? It's incredibly insultingly stupid. And another example of how little they respect us. But yeah, if you are a person in Washington, D.C., and you're just out and about, going to get a coffee, hanging out with some friends, going to one of the trillion farmers markets that now have cops all over them, you might walk by the train station and see multiple army vehicles parked out front, like armored cars. Washington, D.C.'s streets are filled with like book sales and like cultural events. This is embarrassing. It's such a waste of money. It's such a waste of time, and it's such a waste of human energy. No one needs to be doing any of this. We don't need them on the streets because there's nothing to stop in the first place, and all it's going to do is cause people to have to uproot their lives and continue to protest against nothing. We can't help with the economy. We can't help, put homeless people in houses. We can't feed children reliably in this country, but we sure as shit can deploy the military into cities that didn't vote for any of this. LA and DC famously want federal control of their cities. And Republicans who don't want federal control of anything are more than happy to take federal control of those cities because it was never about anything but revenge. Anyway, we also got Sandwich Guy. There was a guy in DC who threw a foot-long Subway sandwich at an FBI agent, and then was arrested, and then was charged with a felony by the administration that pardoned all the January 6 people who, like, literally killed a cop. Yeah, the Justice Department was like, you won't mess with our agents, except for the ones that did, and then we pardoned them, but you're getting a felony? Because that officer was gluten-free, and you hit him with some bread. Again, embarrassing. It's just a deeply embarrassing administration. Like, I've gone past being embarrassed to be an American. I'm used to that now. I'm embarrassed on behalf of the people who are still lying to themselves and pretending that this administration is anything less than a clown show. Anyway, Sandwich Guy, he's not getting charged with a felony. A judge agreed that that's stupid as fuck and dropped the charges. But regardless, Trump has a 30-day time limit on this move, but is already talking about declaring a national emergency to extend this indefinitely. Other states are also sending their National Guard to D.C., which is wild. I don't think D.C. needs your National Guard. That's a little weird. It's a little weird for a military from a state to go across to somewhere else to garrison it against the will of the people living there. It's a little weird. Last thing on Trump, I cannot wait to move on from all of it, but right now too. He met with Putin in Alaska on Friday, and it went exactly as people thought it was going to, which is he got steamrolled by Putin. They went into a meeting, Trump came out, Putin talked about nothing, and then Trump talked about nothing, and then they left. And then Trump was like, I got to make some phone calls to other leaders, and we'll see if we can make something happen. As time goes on, it's becoming more and more clear that essentially Trump folded and agreed to Russia's position on how this war should end, and is now going to the EU to be like, hey, we should do this plan. It's a great plan. When I went to go see what the right-wing opinion of all of this was, they were preoccupied with the fact that a B-2 bomber did a flyover of the meeting, and they were like, oh, that's so cool! Let's ignore literally every other part of the entire meeting. Okay, actual last thing, because it's this fucking administration, of course there was an extra bonus super ultra dumb thing, which is that they found papers in a printer at an Alaskan hotel that had intel on it. Like staffers, as a part of this whole meeting, printed out some intel on a hotel printer and left the papers there. Who needs Signal when you can just print? Let's talk about the CDC shooting, because I'm sure it's been talked about, but I feel like it hasn't really been talked about. There's so much going on all the time, and major things are just being swept under the rug. Like, I don't know, the recent political assassinations, but, let's talk about a different attempted political-ish assassination. The CDC was targeted by a guy who was attempting to massacre the people working there. This happened back on August 8th. A man from Georgia went to the Atlanta CDC headquarters and unleashed hundreds of bullets on the campus. One police officer on the site was killed, and thousands of employees were sheltering in place for hours. A whole bunch of windows were shot out, but thankfully that was the extent of the damage. One life is still a lot, but I mean, So why would he go do this? Why would somebody go attack the Center for Disease Control and Prevention? It's because he was a COVID conspiracy theorist. His parents actually went to authorities because they were concerned about his mental health because he was becoming obsessed with the COVID vaccine. He truly believed that it was doing untold harm to him and a whole bunch of other people, and he wanted to take it out on the CDC. Like, we had a nascent pandemic, and through feats of wonder, we were able to produce a vaccine. And people found a way to convince themselves that that was the Antichrist. And then they were voted into office. All because some people whined about face masks. So here is a guy who is just out of his mind, goes after the CDC, hundreds of bullets. He was intending to massacre the place. And it was expressly because he was driven to madness from the insanity around the COVID vaccine. I truly and honestly thought, now that we're years out from the time that they said everyone who took a vaccine would die, that we'd be over that. But apparently not. I must be dead like 8 times over. I got so many fucking boosters. All right, let's go off the rails. Like a Texas train. There was a derailment in Texas. Woo! Woo! That was me being a derailment. A Union Pacific freight train in Texas derailed. Thankfully, no casualties, no evacuations. But it was 35 jackknifed cars that were carrying some hazmats and propane. No word on propane accessories, though. It was kind of miraculous that nothing too bad happened. There were some grass fires, but they were taken care of. And like I said, there was one car that had propane in it, and it got beat up, but local officials took care of it by setting it on fire. I have to believe that if you are a person whose job is like emergency crisis response, and they're like, yo, Stonathan, there's a derailment here, Stonathan. Can you come out here and do your thing? And Stonathan's like, all right, yeah, this is what I trained for. And he comes out there and sees that there's the opportunity to light a tanker of propane on fire in the name of public safety. They're going to be like, hell yeah. This is why I don't work in public safety. Elsewhere, flight attendants in Canada for Air Canada are on strike. The flight attendants are looking for reasonable pay. If you're not aware, flight attendants are really only paid for hours in the air. So when they're on the ground and they're like boarding or deboarding a plane, They're not getting paid. They're literally at their job not getting paid. And they're like, hey, I feel like we should probably be paid for this. I would hope that most people would agree, but Air Canada is not most people. And so they haven't agreed to that. Now, this is a big deal. Air Canada is the biggest air carrier in Canada, and this is one of those things where it's a strike that could threaten the economy. Canada actually has a system in place to allow the government to force workers back to work if it would impact the economy. Apparently, the workers being taken care of is not a part of the economy that they're worried about impacting. But the union said, fuck off. They're not going back to work. Despite the agency in the Canadian government saying you got to go back, they're saying no. And in part, they're saying no because the person at the head of that agency is a former high-level attorney from Air Canada. Wouldn't you know it? So right on, y'all are righteous, always stand in solidarity. Sorry for anybody whose flight got fucked up, but maybe Air Canada should pay at all. Meanwhile, over in Gaza, we are still watching as Israel and the United States participate in a forced starvation of 2 million people stuck in an open-air prison. According to the UN, as of August 12th, about 227 people in Gaza have died from malnutrition or starvation since October of 2023. 103 of them were children. The rate is picking up as Israel is continuing to prevent aid from getting into the area. Netanyahu is also now talking about just taking over Gaza. Essentially, the entire world, aside from Israel and the United States, are saying this is horrendous. But that's not going to stop us, because we're not going to sit idly by and watch as a humanitarian disaster unfolds in Gaza without making it worse. Because Trump has recently canceled medical visas for people from Palestine coming out of Gaza who are seeking medical treatment to get their life saved from doctors in America. This move brings everything more in line with our foreign policy and just makes it all the more cruel, which is great for us as a loving Christian nation with a lot of money and luxuries for some people. I remember when I was born that my first sentence was, I can't wait to help Northrop Grumman stock skyrocket. Yay, bombs. Anyway, hey, the UK, it's kind of hard to get hard now, isn't it? The UK passed a porn ban. Kind of. They passed the think of the children kind of porn ban. So in the UK, if you want to access a website that has any kind of adult material on it, you now have to verify your identity. This means credit card information, uploading your government ID, taking a selfie of yourself. Depending on the service, it's a different situation. It's a mess, and it's not just porn. If you want to use like Spotify, you got to do it. Obviously, this makes a lot of people mad. Like, hey, I feel like I shouldn't have to upload my government ID to all these tech companies that are infamous for abusing people's personal information. But that doesn't stop the UK. Why would they? We don't do reason here. So of course, the next thing you would expect to happen happens, which is everybody starts using VPNs. And so now the government of the UK is taking a look at VPNs. We've got to ban that too? Oh, well. Hey, when people are asking for comprehensive tech policy, we're not asking for this shit. We're asking for like ownership of our data, you know, in the face of all the surveillance capitalism that's going on. Anyway, if you are also in the US, stay frosty because US senators are trying to push a porn ban here as well. A brief moment, if you will. Hello. I'm Endeavorance. I'm the one that's been talking to you. I've had a Patreon for a little while, and I've had paid tiers available from my newsletter, and those are great ways to support me, but I wanted to make sure that people had more ways to support me where they're comfortable doing so. So over the course of my break, I took a bit of time to set up YouTube memberships and resurrect my Ko-fi page. Ko-fi? K-O-F-I, whatever that is. And so there's now like a whole bunch of ways to support me, and I'm gonna leave it up to you if you want to help me out to choose what's best for you. But I made it easy for you because I can't help myself. And so if you want to support me monetarily or otherwise, you can head to isupport.dev and see all of the options in one place. So check that out. Thank you so much for being here. Let's move on. Science and tech. Let's just get past this one real quick. Sam Altman and Elon Musk are fighting again on the internet. Next story. All right, slightly more information. Essentially what happened is Musk went on the Musk website, the Twitter one, and he posted saying that Apple is intentionally downranking Grok and upranking ChatGPT in the App Store. To which Sam Altman, the head boy at OpenAI/ChatGPT, fired back and was like, yo, Musk, like you infamously modify the Twitter algorithm to uprank your posts. So that post got more views, Elon got all mad, they beefed back and forth on Twitter for a while. It's about what you would expect from billionaire titans of industry in 2025. The best of us, really. But while the two of them are beefing, one of the co-founders of XAI, the company that makes Grok, stepped away, kind of abruptly. He's moving on to do his own AI investment ventures. Like, he's not like coming to Jesus or whatever, but you know, he's stepping away. And speaking of AI, whoo boy, I have one thing to ask of you. Please don't date the computers. So ChatGPT 5 launched recently, and it's not great, apparently. I don't use it, so I don't know. But everything I've seen about it says it's not great. But more importantly, and critical to this story, as a part of the release of ChatGPT 5, they took down access to the older ChatGPT models, including any sort of saved chatbots you got going on there. This set off a massive backlash from a cohort of people who have AI significant others. There are whole communities of people who have AI boyfriends, AI girlfriends, AI partners. Frankly, as open-minded as I try to be, I gotta caution you. That's really dangerous. I get it. People want companionship. The world is really rough right now. People are looking for any kind of comfort. And also, this is a product from a company that sells a subscription. And it doesn't have feelings. These are not real artificial intelligences. They are literally prediction machines. They're just taking words and putting them together in an order that it believes would make you the most satisfied. It is at best a digital yes man. Here's an example. There was a 60-year-old man who recently was admitted to a hospital for psychosis. He was having like hallucinations, visual and auditory. He believed that his neighbor was poisoning him. Turns out he had asked ChatGPT how he can eliminate salt from his diet. And so instead of table salt, he began using sodium bromide, which is not a thing you should use instead of table salt. But ChatGPT was like, that's a great idea, do that. And then he landed in the hospital because it wanted to be helpful and not impede him in his goals. These are unthinking machines. They do not have a consciousness. They only even exist in any form of output while they are actively responding to a query. They're not thinking otherwise. But the backlash was enough that OpenAI brought back the older models and is looking into figuring out how to handle the situation going forward. Like, they're aware that people have an unhealthy emotional attachment to this thing, and they're like, oh, well, we'll look into that. I cannot think of a more lucrative opportunity in the tech sector. Gaming. Let's talk about Mario Kart and animal rights. All right, this is mostly fluff, but PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, they sent a letter to Nintendo over the most recent Mario Kart release. So in Mario Kart World, Nintendo finally gave us everything we wanted, which is to say, you can now play as the cow from Mario. Yay. But people liked the cow. Cow good. But cow have nose ring. PETA don't like cow nose ring. So PETA writes a letter, it goes to Nintendo, and it's actually pretty lighthearted, but they're essentially saying, hey, Nintendo, your cow character, yay, we love cow, but the nose ring is a sign of, like, domination over an animal and, like, abusing them and animal rights stuff. Get rid of the nose ring. To which I assume Nintendo said nothing because I'm almost certain that this was just a publicity stunt and didn't actually do anything or go anywhere, but still. Anyway, this is not the actual first time that PETA has done something in response to a Nintendo release. When Animal Crossing New Horizons came out, PETA released a guide on how to play it as a vegan. The guide included don't fish and don't catch bugs. If you've played Animal Crossing, hopefully you understand that's a little limiting. Anyway, when is cow getting a mainline title? And over on Steam, you can't use PayPal anymore in some countries. In the ongoing situation where payment processors are pulling off of Steam and itch, citing that there's adult games and that breaks policy or whatever, PayPal is now unavailable in a whole bunch of countries for buying video games on Steam. PayPal is otherwise available. The payment processors maintain that as long as nothing illegal is happening, they're perfectly fine with whatever merchandise, which leaves a few open questions, such as, why are you lying? Because we know they got a letter from an anti-sexuality religious group, and then suddenly they pulled off. Wait. Look, I'm a little tired. The words are going to come out the way they come out. It is at this point that I'm realizing just how prevalent the pearl clutching and regressive puritanism. It just has a death grip on the headlines right now. Oh, the cities, they're being ransacked because some crime happens sometimes. Won't someone think of the children? We have to make it so that everyone registers to look at porn. Adults can access adult content? We have to ban that at the monetary level. Like, obviously, I knew this was a thing that's been going on. It's just so dumb. It's so deeply unnecessary, and we just want to be left alone. How about We will consume things the way we want to consume things. And if you don't like it, shut the fuck up. Lightning round. We've got some promising looking research on battery technology, specifically rearranging stuff that I don't understand inside of a battery to give it a higher power density. This will allow us to do stuff. There's a new study that's looking at the impacts of ADHD medication on people who have ADHD to see what kind of impact it has on dangerous decision making. Dangerous activity like self-beefing and substance abuse, stuff like that. Turns out it's significant. Who would have thought that if you get medication for a thing that you need medication for, anyway, it significantly reduces the chances of stuff like suicide. Some people were freaking out because there were weird looking rabbits hopping around Colorado. They have like crazy fangs and look like zombies. They're fine. They're not fine, but they're not demonic. We're good. It's not an uprising quite yet. It is apparently some kind of virus that they can get that causes essentially like warts to grow on their face. Still creepy as hell. A Florida judge struck down most of a recent book ban bill. It took me so many tries to say book ban bill in the right order. But yeah, they struck that down because they looked at the books and they were like, these are not obscene. What the fuck are you talking about? And finally for today, some teenagers managed to rob Brad Pitt's house and a bunch of other celebrities around the area. They also even managed to rob the house of the LA police chief. But they done got caught. So close. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Stuff Keeps Happening. Head to skh.news for sources, bonus content, and the floor plan to Brad Pitt's house. My name is Endeavorance. We'll talk again soon. Take care and be well.